Who?
What a magnificent intro. I expected to see your face rushing towards me.
I know it was going to happen. We were talking about having faces in the
shortly
titles, weren't we? But
We did, yeah. Yeah, we were going to do it, yeah.
But thankfully
So,
we didn't.
How are you both?
Well, Paul, you go first.
Oh, thank you. Well, such a gentleman, Al. Yes, I'm fine, thank you, Jeff. Yes, very good. I mean, it's Friday evening. It's the end of the week, so
Friday
what
evening.
is there not to love?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is our frequently regular commentary night, isn't it? When we all get together, three of us, and watch through
It is.
Who, classic Who, new Who as well. So I'd just like to say hello to everyone watching. At the moment, there's 17 people watching, which is fantastic for our first live stream. And there's a comment here from the Toy Maker Views, his lovely titles and theme. Thank you very much. I put that all together. Well, I didn't put the music together myself, but I put the rest of it together. And the Black Archive is here as well. Al, you might know the Black Archive.
That's cool.
Yeah, the photo repository. And Chris Rushworth is here as well. Hi, Chris. How are you? So Chris regularly engages with things on the podcast. So we've got. Well, I was going to say we've got a plan for tonight, but that would
a plan?
That was a rather terrible plan, as the 11th Doctor might say.
I tell you what I think of your plan, sir. There you go. That's what I think of your plan.
Yes, it's quite a loose plan. But we're going to talk about, obviously, Doctor Who, and we'll talk about some figure stuff as well. But we're going to sort of chat about all sorts of things, really, tonight. And we'd like to ask you to put your questions in as well and throw things at us about anything and everything that you can think of. So feel free to do that. So we've got a new series of Doctor Who currently underway at the moment, haven't we? So
yes.
We're 2 episodes in at the moment. And Paul, how would you say you've been feeling about it so far?
Well, I think, Jeff, I've been feeling rather ambivalent about it so far. I'm hoping that I'm going to engage with it more fully as the season progresses. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's what it says here anyway.
Hi, William Trimble. He says, massive fan. Thank you. That's very kind. Craig says, welcome, boys. Hi, Craig. How are you?
Hi, Craig.
Toy Maker Review says, as my dad and I say, situation normal. I don't know. Is it normal here?
Perfect.
I don't know. So, yeah, Paul has been not too keen on the new series so far, but I've actually been really enjoying it.
I think you've both been liking it, haven't you? Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yes. So I would say, and I'm not really allowed to venture an opinion, in fairness. So
that came from us. We said no opinions, Al.
I'm not allowed to venture an opinion. So I won't venture an opinion on anything else. What I will say is the last episode I thought was the best by a mile since the 60th
Power of the Doctor
episodes.
Power of the Doctor.
which I really enjoy. Not Power of the Doctor, Jeff, because that doesn't count, as you know.
Jeff still cannot leave the 13th Doctor era behind, can you, mate? I do feel sad for him.
I can't.
No, I thought it was brilliant. I thought it had some.
So this
there was some unusual stuff that I think maybe. Well, I will venture an opinion. I think I think the fans aspect was good. I'm not sure using the exact BBC logo and stuff helped.
I thought that was really strange. I mean, you're going to break the fourth wall, smash
something.
right through it completely, and become really self-referential. It's that kind of dividing line. You know, where does something like that, something metafictional, become self-parody and self-congratulation?
It was odd because the message that you were trapped in celluloid had already been established. I kind of agree with you, Paul. I'm not quite sure what it added. But
See, I
think you've got to have it if there's a point to it.
I thought it was a superb episode. I really enjoyed it. Absolutely.
I do like a bit of meta. You know, I'm a big fan of the Scream films.
But, can I just ask you though, Jeff? Are you a fan of meta just for the sake of it, or are you a fan of meta because it adds something new into the story or the experience as a viewer that you get if it does that? Or is it just like, oh, it's meta? Yeah, that's great, isn't it? That's meta. Love it. Love a bit of meta.
It's because I'm very clever. That's why.
Is it really? Yeah.
Yeah.
You are way cleverer than the both of us combined.
I think
surely,
I do like the way it can break something apart and sort of, bring you more into something. And like I thought the fifth, I think it was the fifth Scream film was really good because it was kind of an in universe sequel, but a real world remake and an in-world remake as well at the same time, and it was very kind of layered and very clever, and I liked the way it kind of broke all that apart. And I also liked She-Hulk, the way that kind of just dismantled everything at the end. Yeah.
Can I just add to that though? Right, both of those series start going down that road from the outset. So Scream, it's part of the tapestry of that movie, right? It does it, and it kind of builds on it. And She-Hulk again starts a lot slower, but it tends to build it. It gently chips away at the fourth wall, and then finally kind of breaks it down. But with Doctor Who, the closest we've ever got to anything like this before was probably in Remembrance of the Daleks, when Ace switches on the TV and it's the announcement for what we assume to be the very first episode of An Unearthly Child. And now it's 5:20 on a Saturday night. It's time for a brand new series of adventures in space and time. And here it is. And then it stops. So that's as far as it goes. But obviously with Lux, it just went straight into it, straight through, without us ever having had anything like that before.
I do have to say I was pre-warned by somebody that it was coming and to stick with it. And I must admit, if I hadn't been, I would have probably bailed because it would have been too much. I am not a big fan of fourth wall breaking, full stop. I just, go back to the last Deadpool movie. It's almost too clever for its own good. It really does.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like, I can't get my head around this shit. It's like it's just going so off.
Sorry, Jeff. Jeff's getting depressed. I mean, the thing is as well. I mean, fiction does
that's
it.
Me. I'm not saying that's right.
No. I'm.
You see, I don't mind if it does it for a purpose. I mean, I enjoyed it in Scream. I enjoyed it in Deadpool, to be honest, and even the last one where it really upped the ante in that one. But I mean, it's one of the identifying traits of postmodernist fiction. So John Fowles, who wrote French Lieutenant's Woman and The Collector, he did that a lot in his books. But there was always a purpose to it. There's always to engage the reader on a different level. So you're not just reading passively. You're being challenged in a slightly different way to look at this fiction as something that you'll not normally do. Martin Amis does it. Kingsley Amis's dad even did it, and a whole bunch of writers do it in various, in their novels. Salman Rushdie's another one, but to see it in Doctor Who, it was just really, for me, jarring. And I probably wouldn't have minded so much again if the fans had been or had seemed somehow genuine. People are going to probably hate me now. What do you mean they're not genuine? That's just like me. Well, maybe it was, and maybe they're just like me. But as we said in the podcast, their delivery, it was clearly actors acting a role of how they think Doctor Who fans are. Perhaps because they're not necessarily, unless you've got that fan gene, unless you've got that obsessiveness that we all share, I don't think you can act it. I don't think it can be credible because you don't feel it. And if you don't feel it, if you don't understand it, you can't, there's no reference for you to act other than what you see. And generally, if you see fans of something being a bit geeky, it's like, well, they're a bunch of weirdos, aren't they? Let's act a bit weird, but in a respectful kind of way. That's how it came across to me. Or that could just be my cognitive bias working on colouring the whole thing in a certain way.
I think everyone approaches these things differently. I think everybody's got a valid sort of take on it, and you'll never please everybody, as we know now. Sorry, I was reading. Sorry, just to diverge. I was reading some comments, and
I was seeing them come through.
There was one interesting comment from where was it? William saying, if they'd had Peter Cushing Daleks, would that have given you the opportunity to make them as toys? That's quite a difficult question because the answer is probably no. because just because it appeared in the background, no, it doesn't. And you're probably alluding to the chase, and the chase specifically is because in the TV program, the movie Daleks did appear, and they weren't really supposed to be in there as movie Daleks. So, yeah, but the answer is probably no, because Studio Canal owns one thing. Anyway, but yes, so the fourth wall breaking is, I think that it's degrees. I kind of not 100% a fan, but I glossed over it. Paul, you obviously took a little bit of.
I took it hard, mate. Yeah.
He was
I
angry
kind
about
of,
it.
I kind of agree with you, but you know, I can't. Yeah, like I say, everyone's
was-
their own.
A comment from Gareth Bowley. Good evening, Gareth. He says Lux was illuminating, which is
I've just seen
funny.
that.
too,
Well
because
done. Boom. Love it.
It's like. So I just want to read a couple of comments here. I'm loving this, but Paul, this is
Oh, sorry, hold on.
instant
3 fans
interaction.
agreeing Blink was the best episode. so
So
this is not
unbelievable.
Love
says
and
Boo
Monsters.
Radley. Yeah,
Nice. I like that.
maybe that was an alternate take. Craig, I think it's Craig Collier, says, "Have we got any Comic Cons booked this year?"
Ooh.
Well,
Funny you should ask.
yes, funny you should ask. It's almost like you've been planted to say
It's like
that.
karma.
Not at all. We do, don't we?
Yes.
Oh, you've got yours. Mine's over there somewhere.
Mine's is sitting up in a kitchen cupboard. I'll be honest.
Best place,
because
yeah.
my daughter insisted that she brings 2 of her friends, and having spent an inordinate amount of money, I wasn't intending to lose them, so they're up in a cupboard, basically.
You choking my water there.
It was not cheap. It was not cheap.
Yes, I remember you said you had to book a rather large number of tickets. But yes, the 3 of us are going to be at MCM Comic Con May 24th on the Saturday.
It's my first
So,
time. I've never been to one of these before.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward
Paul's
to
never
it.
been to one.
I'm a virgin when
so-
it comes to things like that, for sure.
I've heard that about you.
Yeah.
I know what to do with it if I had it.
You're a
It's
devil.
true,
So-
that is. It's my man was
If,
the same.
If anyone else is going, let us know. We'd love to see
Yeah.
you, to say hi.
Let's catch up.
So there's a little couple of comments here from AC Animations, and then another follow-on from the Lone Dalek, and it says, "I know they were barely visible. What does Al think of his nephew Ood and Time Squad Vashta Narada figures being canonised in Lux?" And then the Lone Dalek says that made it sound like Al has a nephew who's really an Ood. Can we just clarify that, Al? Your nephew is not an
It's
Ood.
back to the same thing we were chatting about.
He just spilled his spaghetti when he was eating
breaking
it.
the fourth wall and creating that kind of. I wasn't entirely comfortable with it. I don't think Paul was comfortable with it. I think if people liked it, I would say enjoy it.
Good on you.
Mentally, I've glossed over it. I
move
don't.
on.
I don't. It's funny now with Doctor Who. It's difficult to take anything as canon because everything.
You
Yeah,
can make your
that's a
own
good
a little
point.
bit, can't you? Yeah.
Like I was listening to Big Finish recently, which was kind of an alt origin of the Cybermen story, a Fifth Doctor story, and it.
What, Spare
Oh,
Parts?
that's
Genesis
No,
of the
it's-
Cybermen.
Oh,
it's a
And
new
I
one,
really,
isn't it?
didn't,
Sorry,
I really
yeah.
didn't enjoy it versus Spare Parts, which I
I
really
think
did
that's-
enjoy.
Yeah,
and
I think that's
and
definitive for me.
I didn't think one was significantly better, but they obviously that's the Fifth Doctor. But that's a story about a story that never happened.
Mm.
I always think there's a very good reason why stuff never happens. It's like the Mandalorian doing designs that were done by the illustrator guy, and you know, I just think there was a
Yeah.
reason they were left out. So don't go back and kind of hold them out 20 years later.
Ooh, that's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because that puts me in mind of the other thing that I know you love, Al, which is Star Trek Discovery. Because that Discovery ship is based on an unused
It is.
early treatment for the Enterprise, isn't
Is
it?
it?
It is, and it's
And
bloody horrible.
I like
and
it.
and was just
I
like-
love it.
And it was just like, again, there's a reason these things
No,
don't
no,
happen.
no, no.
Sorry,
Well,
there's
yes,
a quick, there's a
but,
comment
yeah.
up there, Doctor 909, who says, "I wanted to apologise if my headache about the Golden Sonic." It's no headache because that Golden Sonic isn't really a Golden Sonic. We were doing some test pieces and stuff, so the chap Ivan, whose desk Brooks was sitting in front
Oh,
of,
it's only at the
blue
Hong Kong
Sonic that I've
walkthrough.
done. We've done a bunch of test pieces with various finishes and stuff, and they were just lying out. So you didn't cause any headaches at all. There is no there is no Golden Sonic, but it's not a pre-production sample either. I can see that in the comments. So just for clarity, there's no issue. I wouldn't have shown it or it wouldn't have been in there if there was any issue because I knew
If
what
it was
Doctor Who stuff was
secret.
coming out. So
Yeah.
don't worry, about it. It's not a problem.
Just also like to say, if anyone who's watching at the moment, I guess you probably all subscribed actually, but if not, please do. Be lovely to grow the YouTube channel a bit more. So I thought we could talk about something different for a few moments before we go back to Doctor Who. So earlier in the week we sent some messages in our little chat group, and Paul suggested we could talk about our top 5 TV shows or movies. So
always a good one.
Take your pick, and viewers, let us know what you're watching at the moment as well. So Paul, what are you thinking? One your top 5 TV shows of all time, or just stuff?
Oh, I don't know.
Just
as at the moment. Mind you, saying that, I'm not watching a huge amount of stuff at the minute. I'm too busy. No, I am. I'm back on because series 2 of Andor is out. We were just having a little chat about this just before we went live, a little while ago, because it's. How do you described it brilliantly? How did you describe Andor? Do you want to repeat that to our listeners?
Star Wars with all the fun taken out, Paul.
which I can't disagree with, because it is. Because I think one thing we always forget is that Star Wars is really a kids' film, and it is meant to be fun. And the Phantom Menace again was a kids' film, and because I think those of us who were like kids when the first Star Wars came out hated the Phantom Menace because it's too childish. But it is a kids' movie, but Andor is kind of like, well, what would Star Wars be like if it was an adults series, obviously TV series? And I think that's fine, because we have all grown up from Star Wars now, and maybe we're a little bit older and wiser and more embittered and less likely to laugh at the world for various reasons. But it's nice to see Andor treated, or the Star Wars universe treated like it's a real place, where the dangers are real. There's a lot of good stuff in series 1 where we see things from the Imperial side, and not that we necessarily sympathize with them, but we can see that a lot of those people, a lot of those bureaucrats who are wearing an Imperial uniform are just kind of doing their job. And all right, they've made a decision to kind of shut their minds off to all the pain and horror going on, under the heels of the Empire. But nonetheless, it feels really credible. And I like that aspect of reality, I guess, or sardonicism. That runs through it. I like it with the fun taken out, as much as I love the fun in.
So I haven't really got into that, but I didn't really like. It's not that I didn't like it. I watched it. I thought it was palatable. There's certain things with modern Star Wars I just don't like. I don't like Star Destroyers floating around in low orbit and stuff like that. To me,
but visually, it looks brilliant.
But that's what I mean. There's why? Because if that was why the hell did the Battle of Hoth happen? Because you could have parked a Star Destroyer over the Hoth base and just it's just like there was certain when you build a cinematic universe. You have a bunch of rules, and then if you then subsequently break those rules, and I know some people will say, well, in the prequels they had Avenger class ships, but they just took off from the ground and they kind of rose up from the shipyards, didn't they? Just for smoke and mirrors to hover around in the atmosphere. I just find that, especially in a Star Destroyer, is infinitely bigger than an Avenger class.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, so the first time I think in the first time we saw it in the film series was in Rogue One, wasn't it? When the Star Destroyer was hovering over.
Still inexcusable.
It's not. It's not. There's no way, because I just love that image so much.
Why do you need a shuttlecraft? Because you could park your Star Destroyer at ground
in
level
low orbit.
and
what are you going to do? Jump out of the thing? Use a parachute? Get your rocket stormtrooper rocket pack on.
By those rules, you could park your Star Destroyer and just use a
land a Star Destroyer though. It can hover in low orbit, but it can't land. You can't land it.
It makes no sense at all. You don't need shuttlecraft if you can park a Star Destroyer anywhere you damn well want.
Have we seen a Star Destroyer physically land on a planet in the Star Wars universe? I don't think so. We've seen it hover in low orbit, like you said, but no. So, how do you know? Maybe there's some science that says it isn't. Maybe there's some gobbledygook somewhere.
At some point. Anyway, it's not.
Anyway, so yeah, Andor's my number one.
It's not. But, no, interesting. The Star Wars thing is true. I think Rogue One still has some comedic and sort of fun.
It does have a little bit.
Kind of, this is happening elements, albeit it was harder. Andor kind of is unrelentingly
grim,
pleasant. But on the flip side, I don't take, if anybody loves it, I'm not going to take that away from them. There's a lot of modern Star Wars. Some things stick, some things don't.
Some it doesn't. Yeah, it's a wide audience. Isn't it? I mean, saying that, everything about Andor, almost on the reverse of that was another one in my top 5, I guess, was Skeleton Crew, which is like unashamedly Star Wars for kids. It recognisably happens in the same universe, but it's so much lighter in tone. It's so much more, it's just like a kid's adventure. It's like Goonies in the Star Wars universe. It's that kind of vibe. It's great. I really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it up until the last episode, but I found Jude Law's character just a dick, and it's hard to.
He is though, yeah. So you didn't engage with him because of that.
You kind of think, he's kind of not a dick part way through, and then he's less of a dick. And then suddenly
then he comes through it.
A major knob, and you just think,
there you go. As Daniel points out there, actually, just on the chat, Daniel points out it's not about the size of your Star Destroyer, it's how you use it, Al. So there you go. I'm going to throw that. Of course, we're talking Star Wars over here, but Jeff is not a massive Star Wars fan. But there is a little bit of Star Wars that you like, isn't there, Jeff?
It was very little. It's Grogu.
There you
That's
go.
It. I like The Mandalorian.
Did you actually like? Did you watch all the Mandalorian, or did you just kind of dip in and out a little bit?
No, I watched it all. People will sort of get really hyped about it, and I thought, he's quite cute. And my girls had seen the teddies of him and stuff, and they quite liked him. So I thought, I'll have a look at this and see what it's like. And it was quite interesting in the first episode. Quite enjoyed it, and then I watched the second one, and I thought the kind of father-son relationship with Mando and Grogu was just brilliantly done.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
And I like that Mando was a sort of, upstanding, decent kind of heroic role model. And ever since I've had kids, and it was probably the same for you guys and anyone else who's watching who's got kids, things like that, before. I would have got it, and but now it hits me a lot harder. It's like the Revenant with DiCaprio in it. It's and like Avatar, the Way of Water. The stuff with the kids in there. It just gets me so much more than it did, before kids. I like Mandalorian. It's really good. I'm looking forward to the film.
I think I enjoyed series 1 probably most, just because it kind of threw all the different spaghetti westerns and everything.
Yeah, it totally pulled on
every
that,
week was the
brilliant.
Magnificent Seven, or Fistful of Dollars, or whatever it was.
Yeah,
it kind of
the
felt
kind of man
West.
with no name.
So series 1 I thought was really good. Series 2 I enjoyed. I felt the last series kind of, it wasn't really about Mando. I would rather they just called that, Bo-Katan, The Rise of Mandalore, and just made it a separate series. That's essentially what it was.
Yeah, they could have done that. Yeah,
it pulled a lot of stuff from the Mandalorian arc in the Clone Wars. It kind of closed that off, I think, quite nicely. It sort of closed it off. It gave it a new start, because there's a whole story of the fall of Mandalore pre-Empire and. Throughout the Clone Wars, which is brilliant.
The Star Wars animated stuff that sort of goes over Mandalore and
So, but I guess if you haven't watched any of that, then it might seem a little bit of a left turn in terms of the actual Mandalorian series. Just looking on the comments, actually, we've got who says been rewatching T.J. Hooker starring William Shatner. Who remembers that? I remember that. Man, that was brilliant.
100% I remember.
That brings back memories.
Rawlings.
People my age don't watch stuff I do. People my age don't watch stuff I do. Older shows.
Have you seen the comment from Boo saying currently watching Antiques Roadshow while this stream?
Yeah, I wanted to question Boo on that. Are you saying we're all antiques?
I think he is. I don't think there's any ambiguity in that.
Not right. Not wrong, really.
Daniel Rawlings said he's been watching Black Mirror at the moment. It's been phenomenal, and that's quite interesting because, well, I watched the first one, which was called Common People, I think, and I did like it, but as it progressed, and I won't sort of spoil anything, I found it quite moving and tragic, and I gotta be honest, I find watching stuff like that quite difficult, and it had quite a bleak ending, and I said to my wife, are they all like this? And she was like, yeah, it's pretty kind of dystopian,
very much so, yeah.
And I was like, okay, I it was really good, but I kind of like to have a bit of fun with something.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
I mean, it's not that Boo Radley says if the cap fits. Only one of us is wearing a cap.
Oh yeah.
If I do,
26.
serious, more emotional things. It's great, but yeah, I just found that a bit bleak. But I'm just slightly going off. I'm super excited for Thunderbolts. I was texting Al about it earlier.
Yeah.
That has gone
Yeah,
from
Frey wants to go and watch that.
yeah, I'll go watch it because it's a Marvel film.
Obviously.
To this is looking really good, and then the trailers kept going. I was like, oh god, this looks amazing. And anyone who knows Bob from the comics will know that he is a very complex character, and I'm really excited to see what they do with him on screen, and I'm very excited.
Yeah,
about
I'm kind of I'm more looking forward to it just because having seen the Black Widow thing, which I've watched a couple of times, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah,
I
that's
have
a
a
good
couple
one.
of minor complaints, as you might expect. But I think it's more a more interesting setup that you don't have these bunch of perfect people. They're all imperfect in some way, which I
Yeah.
think is pretty cool.
And
that's what
minor
that button does.
complaints is,
Sorry,
they put
they're all
Johansson
sorry.
in this. So I know I was just going to say, you've got lovely Florence Pugh running around in a boiler suit, and then they put Scarlett Johansson in this lovely skin tight outfit, and it's kind of like, why didn't she get the skin tight outfit? Not that it was necessary, but it felt like they were sort of
yeah,
for a little bit.
it wasn't as good a kind of superhero costume. It is quite interesting in Thunderbolts, like you just say, how they're all just kind of normal people, like the posters say, no, not super, not heroes, and they've put them up against literally the most powerful, hero of them all. And essentially, excuse my language, they're fucked against that guy.
Jeff.
Yeah, Gareth says, I like how Bob in the comics had those issues set in the past as one shots. Yeah, I'm wondering if they're gonna do something with digitally inserting Bob into some older stuff for some flashbacks.
I think
so.
It's
Yeah,
been
I'm
a long
excited.
time since there's been anything Marvel that I've really looked forward to. I must admit, I've been rewatching, talking about stuff I was rewatching. I went back and watched Doctor Strange and the most recent Spider-Man one, which I really liked. I like that multiverse version of Spider-Man. Spider-Man's a great hero for exactly the same reason. He's sort of angst driven in everything that he does, and he kind of can do no right because every time he kind of fixes
it all blows up in his face again. Yeah, no matter what he does, there's
in the same way I suppose Batman does. You've got that Batman. Like you've saved Gotham City, but you've wrecked it.
Yeah,
trashed the whole thing in the process.
And I think Spidey is quite relatable. As Peter Parker, he can't hold down the job. He's got money troubles. He can't keep his girlfriend. There was a quite well, I think it's well known anyway, saying from someone that was Marvel characters are normal humans trying to be super, and DC are super people, gods trying to be normal. And for me, that's why the Marvel stuff always resonates a lot stronger.
I don't agree with that in the slightest.
Well, that's nice.
I think it's a mixed bag.
I think that's bollocks, frankly.
I think it's a mixed bag. I think the.
It depends on the hero and who they are, and
I think
else.
Superpowers versus people like Batman, where Batman is essentially just a guy with access to really good tech.
Yeah, his superpower is I'm rich.
He has powers, but they're not. It's kind of it's quite funny when you see things like Avengers Endgame, and you've got this entire multiverse of like hundreds of these people with powers, and you just kind of think, Jesus, we'd be properly screwed if that world actually existed.
Yeah,
exactly.
The Boys, which I don't really like, and I've never really watched, but that's essentially the premise of The Boys. Although Watchmen I like as well. I think Watchmen.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Yeah, I watched that for a long old time.
Al, there's a question just coming here from Lewis AP. Lewis, you've very kindly done a super chat. We haven't done one of these before, so I'm trying to kind of figure some of this out. And various people have had boxes coming up with like £2 on and stuff. So if you've contributed something, thank you. That's incredible. Lewis says, massive fan of the work you guys put into the figure line. What Doctors would you love to redo in the Vortex range?
Ooh, that's a question.
Well, I think most people know top. Actually,
13.
got a bit of a cold this week, so if I start coughing uncontrollably,
Yes, it
I
did.
would say, I think I've talked about it before. The 10th Doctor, I think, is one of the figures that I think we never really did justice to.
Really?
Well, considering how many we sold, but I think when you compare them to the other figures, and especially some of the Doctors that came later and the classic series stuff, I would say that figure doesn't, the Matt Smith figure is brilliant, the Peter Capaldi figure is brilliant, all the other ones are really good, the classic Doctors I would say arguably are pretty good, but the 10th Doctor figure I feel is a little bit static, and because he's a guy in a suit, especially the one without the jacket, he's just a little bit kind of, so I'd love to redo that one. I'd love to refresh all of them, if I'm honest. But I'd especially like to do, I think people are aware the Fourth Doctor is my sort of first love, as it were.
He's your man.
I've got some space on my shelf.
Oh, Jeff's
up here,
reaching around somewhere.
See it there, so they can go up there when you get them done.
Oh, is that why you moved out of the way?
Yeah.
It's
I thought you were reaching out for something.
Actually, it's one of the issues we've come up against with the Vortex series. The Pertwee one, I think worked really well. There is some of the new stuff that's coming, and I'm not saying anything else about it, but there's some of the new stuff that's coming where I would say we looked at trying to use some of the old figures to create part of the new figures, and some of the old figures are actually now so old and so kind of their time that actually it's an injustice to the things we were trying to do to kind of use them, and we had to kind of swap a bunch of stuff around. But more on that in 8 months time, 6 months time, something like that.
We shall be watching and waiting, I think. How many versions of us are there out there in the multiverse, eh?
Well, that's a fascinating question, isn't it? Because they have that theory about if when two people meet in a room, there's the two people that meet in the room that people are observing, but then there's if it was me and Paul, so there's me as I see me, and Paul as he sees himself, and then there's Paul as he sees, so there's like, in theory, there's infinite, I suppose.
Infinite numbers, yeah. There's
they would have eye patches, says Gareth.
Yeah.
I'm not a big believer, I must admit, in multiverses. I think otherwise
you are.
Things. I'm not. No,
you're not.
No, not really. I am a believer in antimatter because they have done experiments to prove that things kind of.
That's a thing.
And there is some scientific evidence that the most interesting thing I saw recently was that idea that we're actually inside the event horizon of a black hole looking out, and that's freaking disturbing.
Did we talk about this last time? I think we might
did.
have done, mightn't we? Yeah, that's
Is that when we talked some ghost stories? If anyone enjoyed the ghost stories that we had, true ghost stories, let us know, because I want to do more.
You don't have to, by the way. That's optional. It's not, it's not a prerequisite to watching the stream.
So, Al, one of the questions you proposed was to talk a bit about Big Finish and how it's held the torch for Doctor Who the longest. Which I think is totally true. I've been very excited today. I annoyed you both by texting you a picture of the 13th Doctor audio cover that they released today.
Vampires. We need more vampires in the world.
Paul went, vampires.
There will be some, I would say, who probably would argue and say maybe BBC Books did it and the Virgin Books and stuff like that. There's a whole shelf full up there. What I would say is I think Big Finish out of almost anything, and actually I even count the TV series that I think they have done Big Finish, guys, have done Doctor Who the best and most consistently.
Do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Unpopular opinion of the week.
No,
But
I think it's probably a very popular
I
opinion, actually.
think when you listen to the sort of, they always do new stuff. They always do exciting stuff. They're progressive. What they don't do is screw around with stuff just for the sake of it. And
Genesis of the Cybermen.
Yeah, well, that was a lost story. So I know I agree with you, because, like I said,
it's posing the question.
Spare Parts.
Yeah.
If anyone, I will say, if anyone hasn't listened to Spare Parts, for God's sake, go listen to Spare Parts. It is the best Cyberman origin story ever.
You could also check out our review of that story, couldn't you?
Definitely do that.
What?
Yeah, we reviewed it a while ago.
We had a listen to that again. I mean, I've listened to it quite a few times now. I mean, it is a very depressing story. It's an inevitability of the Cybermen, which I think is great, because that is a theme that runs through the best Cybermen stories. That you will be like us. You will be like us. That
absolute doom, and it kind of what's good. Again, it's that thing they don't over explain it. So, you know, if you read the David Banks book that came afterwards, his theory was that Mondas did that kind of U-turn in space and headed back to Earth, and that's where we ended up with the 10th planet. But because the Cybermen were evolving, these cyber nomads shot off into space on that route back and formed all these different Cybermen, Telos and various other places that the Doctor runs into, you know, throughout the history of the program.
Yeah.
And I just... But I agree with you, Paul. It's unrelentingly doom-like, and it's one of the. But I love those stories that just feel like, you know, there's bits in that story where the church bell rings and it sounds. It sounds
it's
horrible.
Mark
It's just
on
like
fire, I think.
it's Christmas, and you know, and it's not pleasant, and you know, everybody's cold, and the roof's caving in, and there's
hungry,
no food,
and running out of air,
and they're all dying, and they've lost their mom. And it's just like horrendous. And then you've got Thomas Dodds, who kind of one by one, each of these characters, almost like horror movie-esque, get kind of picked off, or something happens. Thomas Dodds has that brilliant throwaway line about, it stinks of antiseptic, and Doctor does, they've always done that, and that line completely changed my perception of the Cyberman. The minute you think the Cyberman comes near and it stinks like antiseptic, it's like, oh my God, that makes
because you smell it, it puts you right there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, things like that appeal to as many senses as possible. Your taste, your smell, your hearing. You know, the whole ambience of it is brilliant. And just looking at a note there from who says Spare Parts masterpiece, absolutely terrifying.
That's the Toy Maker reviews. I'll just say Paul and Al can't see full names
the
on
Toy
our chat,
Maker reviews. It just says on my feed. If I look on the YouTube, yes, the Toy Maker reviews. There you go. I will note that one for future. There you go. Thank you, Toy Maker reviews.
Lone Dalek, sorry, said Spare Parts is a masterpiece, and Toy Maker reviews.
Oh, is there more than one
CDs? There's a few.
Difficult, doesn't it?
Boo Radley said that they were a Big Finish virgin until today got the 13 range on order. And Dr. 909 says, seeing as Jeff is quite excited, that's an understatement, what would you guys like to see or hear from the 13 audios? I just, you know what, I'm just happy that we're getting it, to be honest. I think that to have Jodie and Mandip coming back and knowing that Chris Chibnall had, you know, he didn't sort of have massive input, did he, Paul? But he, you know, he kind of knows what's happening in it, so he, you know, he's involved in, you know, kind of a loose way. I think is great. So, you know, anyone who listens to us regularly will know I'm obsessed and can't move on. So sorry, stalker. So yeah, I'm very, very excited and can't wait to hear it. And the fact that we get nearly 2 years of bi-monthly releases.
Strangely enough, I am as well, but purely for the fact that I really didn't enjoy the TV series, and I didn't think. And this is why I always say, you know, Big Finish. If Big Finish can do anything, for me, they'll redeem the 13th in the way that they redeemed the 6th. I don't think the 6th Doctor was particularly great on TV. He was aggressive. I think they turned him into this fabulous wordsmith and just a much more, sort of interesting character, and he had some great stories. And stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that because
I'm not a big 13th Doctor fan.
He's not.
No,
why do we have him on this podcast, Jeff?
We've done a few commentaries with Al, and it physically hurts.
When our 13th Doctor fans suddenly rail against us,
but you know what?
I think it would be great to see what they do.
I
do think it's a bit of a mistake to have. It sounds terrible, but I didn't, like I say, Mandip. I wasn't. Again, I was like, why not give some new companions? I think it'd have been interesting to see 13th Doctor
on Big Finish, you mean?
Yeah.
Because the 13th Doctor and Mandip is
yeah.
that relationship. It's that bond. It's like the Doctor. It's like the 4th Doctor and Sarah Jane. It's like the 3rd Doctor and Joe Grant. You have to have
it wasn't.
them there.
It was the 13th Doctor and the adoring puppy.
No, Al. I'll tell you what. There's a delete button here somewhere. You might just vanish. Yeah. And also, I've got to say as well, because I heard you mention this, and the 13th Doctor doesn't need to be redeemed at all in my eyes. Big Finish does not need to come along and rescue or save or redeem or whatever you want to call it to the 13th Doctor. The 13th Doctor, from start to finish, all of that volume of Doctor Who is absolutely nigh on peak as far as I'm concerned.
I've always
said it looked the most amazing the program has ever looked. Everything else,
But what?
Who says you need to wash your mouth out, Al?
I think he may be
Thank you, Boo.
I think he may be right.
Boo's in the camp. Thank you.
Boo's in the house.
But what I'd like to add here is that despite the fact that Al didn't like it, you're so respectful about it, and there's a bit of gentle ribbing and stuff. But we're great friends, and I think it, maybe some corners of the internet could take a note from that. You can dislike something but still be decent about it.
Everybody has their Doctor. Everybody has their. My daughter has. She loved David Tennant. It kind of he will always be the Doctor that brings her back. Doctor. Everybody has that Doctor that they really like, whether it's the old one, the new one, whatever. And the trouble is, old farts like me, we're always like, bloody the future. You don't
not the same.
Well, Paul has not been like that at all. It's
the same with me going, break the fourth wall, Doctor Who logo on the telly in a programme. How dare they? It's whatever you enjoy. Isn't
I did call you a boring git earlier, didn't I? When I sent you the 13th audio cover, and you went, more vampires. And
you said don't moan, but it's not the 13th Doctor that I'm objecting to. It's just more bloody vampires. The world does not need
vampires, will it?
It will be. It will be some space explanation for why people are sucking the blood out of some people, and there'll be some kind of allegory about them being outsiders and looking in. And if we're lucky, there might be an allegory. But do you know, I don't want to go off on a rant because it's just a personal thing with vampires, right?
Well, I'm going to shut you up.
No, hold on. I have to explain this. Wait, shush. Right, I have to explain this. When I was at uni, I did a massive dissertation on vampires in modern fiction and culture and everything. And that I rinsed the whole vampire legend and vampires in fiction and vampires in TV and cinema to death. And since then, I've realised there have never been any new vampire stories since then. It's like everything we're doing now has already been done before. So if it's a vampire story, fine, but give us something we haven't seen. Give us something that is current to now and can only be told in this particular window of history. Then I'll be happy.
Now,
and you can't switch me off because I've got control of the master.
No, on a complete tangent from that, one thing I did see recently that I thought was absolutely brilliant. I just randomly found the Pope's Exorcist on Netflix. Which
now you're talking. This is quality stuff now.
Which is a Russell Crowe movie, and it's the most enjoyable horror story, which I'm not particularly fond of. I have seen it in a very long time. It's absolutely brilliant. I literally, I texted my brother and sort of said, "You've got to watch this." film because it's right up your street. It's just really well done. He plays a brilliant character. I'd love to see more. But if you get a chance and you got nothing else to do, watch the Pope's Exorcist.
I will check that.
Freaking
The
brilliant.
Pope's Exorcist. You heard it here, folks.
There's a comment from Sam who says, "Call Me Master" and the Fugitive box set were great stories. Yeah, I'd like to second that. The Fugitive set was excellent.
Did you listen to all of Call Me Master?
No, I've done the first two.
Because we were going to do a podcast on this.
Yeah, I need to get on it.
It takes Jeff forever. Honestly.
Sam's saying morning, guys. Where is Sam?
Where are you, Sam? Tell us
that it's morning.
Yeah, Sam, let us know.
Sam, let us know.
Let us know, Sam.
Gareth said Blade. It doesn't look like the MCU Blade is ever going to happen. So
actually, to be fair, I did enjoy Blade. But again, Blade was like many years ago now, wasn't it? Was it early 2000s?
It was a long time ago, yeah.
It's 25 years ago.
Blade did have a pretty great cameo in Deadpool and Wolverine.
He did.
One Blade.
He wasn't the only one who had a cameo.
That was great, and to the point
Look,
where I think they've now canned the idea of using
Buffy.
Buffy. The guy
Sam's in New Zealand.
This is
my...
No,
I agree, Jeff. Buffy. There you go.
Buffy.
That's why it's morning.
Excellent.
Jeff, you're right about Buffy. Buffy was a great series, and it told us something new about vampires. But again, that was the mid-90s. That was 30 years ago. If all they're going to do is do exactly what Buffy did now in 2025, I'm not here for that. I'm bored by that. You know, I've seen Buffy. I enjoyed Buffy. I want something that is not Buffy. Yeah. We've done Buffy. Move on. Let's have something new.
Somebody in the comments said that
no, we don't. Exactly.
Sam saying I'm like this with zombies. I'm the same.
There you go. Yeah.
Just like for me, they're like, how can something with no brain
eat brains
be in any way animated or threatening? I hate zombies. I just think they're crap. Completely crap.
I'm inclined to agree. Again, you know, unless again we get a zombie movie that does something different, that shines a light on something that only that movie can do, and it can only do it by having zombies in it,
the Last
rather than
of Us,
just there for effects.
is the one that is
I love
marginally closer to reality because there is the zombie ants and the zombie tarantulas.
But it's not about the zombies, is it? It's almost like, you know, they rarely pop up in the series. It's about the relationships of people at the end of the world, almost, you know, thrown from civilization to suddenly having to reinvent everything, civilization again, you know, and the way that relationships are kind of thrown into stress throughout all of that. So it's pretty. Yeah, I love The Last of Us. I played the game of that years ago when it first came out, because my mate had said to me, "Paul, you got to play The Last of Us. It's brilliant." And he did talk like that. He's from Manchester. The Last of Us, yeah.
In that exact voice.
He did, right? But so I went on at the PlayStation, and it was like, and that first opening sequence where what's his name's daughter dies, I thought was horrific. It's like you were saying, Jeff, right? Because at the time, my eldest daughter was really young. She was only about 5 or 6, and when I was playing that game, it was like I was watching the death of my daughter, and it was awful. It really hurt. There was tears coming down my eyes. I thought, I can't play this game. There is no way. You know, I can't get past this bit, and that's just that first sort of 15, 20 minutes of the thing. But you know, I thought, why does a video game need to show us, you know, a guy's daughter getting killed, a young daughter, you know, but that gives it the emotional kick for the rest of the game. And I tell you honestly, I've played very few games that have given me the experience, and it is an experience that The Last of Us had. And that moment with the giraffes walking, where they see the giraffes walking through, is it UCLA or whatever it is, you know, because they've escaped from the zoos and they're just wafting past. And they had that in the TV show. I'm like, yeah, I love the fact they kept it for the TV show. Did it slightly differently, but the imagery was in there. I'll shut up now. I'll stop. Sorry, mate.
I'm going to fire some questions quickly to Al. These came courtesy of Scott from Gallifrey Customs.
I know him
can
well.
you? Yes, Scott's a good lad. Callum Jones asks, can you name one era that we'll be getting figures from this year?
One era?
Oh, the Planet Crinoid.
80s.
Okay. Next. Hold on. Will we ever see LA Customs? Will we ever see a release of the Ashad Cyberman?
No.
Oh. Pumpkin Wizard. How soon can we expect a re-release of 14?
That said, I do know that I think I've talked about it before. The scan of the Ashad costume is done. it was all cleaned up. I don't physically have a copy of that in the same way that I don't physically have a copy of the Dregs. But if I can get it, I'll gladly put it out there on Gallifrey Base for anybody to download and print off. If they want one of that bloke in a suit, have it.
Have it.
I'll have one of that bloke in a
I'll
suit.
take it. Yeah, I'll have it.
I'll have in a shed.
No,
One of the best
so
villains
no,
from
it's not on
Doctor
any of our
Zero.
plans, and I
Okay.
don't think it will. Genuinely, I don't think it will be going forward. But I'm quite happy to make that available.
Okay, cool. Whovian Customs, will we see any more classic companions anytime soon?
Not anytime soon, I don't think. We tend to. It's the same story I've sort of said a lot of the times, which is it comes down to budget and time. Normally, companions would be the kind of thing we would do in the B&M series. I've got less budget for doing those, so I would say, honestly, probably not. Well, not, I know 100% not this year. It doesn't mean that we couldn't do it sort of next year. But yeah, the short answer is no, I've got other priorities for this year.
Okay. Vault of Omega did ask a question, which we've kind of just
Omega,
covered
please.
with companions.
Sorry.
Omega. Just wanted to make my gratitude clear to Al and everyone involved in the figure line, which I'm sure many people will second. Another quick question from Acquainted Guy. What are the chances you'll make a Belinda figure?
Well, like I say, Lux I thought was fabulous, and I think she is absolutely gorgeous. I would love to. The honest answer is there's nothing in progress yet, but I think I sort of said on Galley Base today, 2026, I've got some plans that I need to put a proposal out for next year. My personal opinion is a brilliant set to do on that would be Belinda and say something like Mr. Ring-a-Ding as like a bendy figure or something like that. Oh Jesus, what happened there?
What was
Sorry,
that?
that was a crowd going, oh, I've just racked up a few sound effects that I forgot about. Maybe I should have done this one.
I stress to add, nothing is in progress.
If you did do him,
I think she's fabulous. I think she pushes everything uphill. In fact, I
really good.
bailed from I didn't bail from Doctor Who, but I bailed from Doctor Who to watching the first episode of Andor, and obviously she kind of
she's in there,
straddles both those things. So
Yeah.
I think she's fabulous. I thought she was absolutely fabulous in the episode, and I think she's gorgeous. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd love to, but nothing.
could you accidentally rename him Mr. Dingaling? Because that is his
Mr. Dingaling.
Mr. Dingaling.
Well,
Paul, well done. The Lone Dalek says that thanks for scaring the living daylights out of me there.
Sorry,
I
I do apologise. It did come out quite loud, didn't it?
Myself. I had
There's
no
no
idea
volume
what the
control.
hell.
Yeah, well done, Paul.
Let's keep everyone on their
Everyone's
toes, mate. That's what we need.
Shat themselves.
Well, I need to go and change my pants. Is all I can say.
Hey, yes, why are you even wearing pants? I don't wear anything underneath this, I tell you. It's because you don't know seat to this level, like. Anyway, sorry, yes, continue.
So let's change topic for a minute. What other films are you guys looking forward to this year? And are people watching? Let us know.
Oh, that's a good question.
Oh, that is a good question.
Do you know what this year I think
on everything, but
Hold on, Jeff's about to answer his own question now.
yeah. This is the best summer for films I think in quite a long while. We've got Mission, we've got a new Jurassic Park, Lilo and Stitch looks really good.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, Final Destination looks great. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer.
No.
We've already had that, haven't we?
Dragon. No, it's a new. It's
I know what you
a
did last summer.
Is it a remake?
Last Easter.
No,
Last
sequel.
Last October. Last
Yeah,
Halloween.
I know what you did last Tuesday.
I've seen it
I've still
before.
got it in the washing
I
up.
don't want to see it again.
Yeah, put that away.
Bundersrats is not sure about the new Superman. No,
Excuse me.
James.
Oh yeah,
Bun's
Superman.
rat, I believe, is
Oh, is it? Sorry.
technical pronunciation of that.
The Fantastic Four. Yeah, Gareth says Fantastic Four. Do you know what? I'm not a big Fantastic Four fan, but that is a great cast, and the film is looking pretty
yeah,
special.
that looks. I must admit, I wasn't I was like thinking, Christ, another reboot, but they've kind of set it in this old universe in the sort of I think 50s or 60s, and it just looks absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
So yeah, 100%. Whereas Superman, for instance, I don't want to see that, and I don't care because I've seen so many Superman films.
I'm not bothered about Superman.
I'm
James
going to
Gunn,
fly the flag for Superman. I want to go see it, and if I end up going to see it on my own, I mean, I may not like it, but at least I will have seen it and have formed my opinion based on the evidence of my own eyes.
Well, that's good.
Rather than what people just think about.
We all know
marker mode here in the flesh, isn't it?
No, I don't particularly like Superman.
That's all right. That's fair enough. It's not your thing.
I like James Gunn though.
Superman's damned if he doesn't, damned if he doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, if he's truly super, he's almost unstoppable. And then
it's just not that interesting.
No, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess. I mean, for me, you know, Superman's one of those first comic strips that I ever used to read when I was a kid. Superman and Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four were like my key things growing up, and I just used to love it. And it was just the whole thing of just escaping the shitty things that were just going on in life and just getting lost in those comics. And when the films came on, you know, when you know, the 70s and 80s films, and they're so much fun. They're just,
Christopher Reeve
is
really good. Yeah,
it's definitive, and they've never been able to recapture that, and I don't think they should. But they've gone into some weird directions. I mean, Superman Returns was just frankly just weird.
So to my
I can see what they were trying to do.
I repainted my Han Solo Gen 1 figure and put a cloak on it as Superman.
As Superman, why would you do that?
And
that's just crazy.
Many a night in Perth, gazing out of my window into a rainy outside, wishing I could fly, and I never did, which just really annoyed me. So
I'd rather web shoot far more.
I think every generation needs a definitive Superman for them. You know, and I don't think we've had one really since Christopher Reeve.
But isn't that the problem? Because we've had so many reboots of Batman and Superman, and it's kind of like, if you can't write a Batman film, and that Patterson one was god awful.
Which one?
But if you can't,
what the last one?
Yeah, it was.
Started out really well, and then it went
right. Actually,
I
thought it was alright the first time. Then I tried to watch it the second time, and then I just fell asleep after about 40 minutes.
Casting the right people, but my God, that's a boring movie.
It does drag a little bit. But
Gareth makes a good point. Superman feels too soon post Man of Steel.
Well, I mean, Man of Steel was. When was that? That was a long time ago now, though, wasn't it?
What really?
When was it? When was Man of Steel? I'm telling you, it was at least 10 years ago, if not more than that.
Maybe. But
Sam's cussing us. She's saying Ashad's costume was super scary, and the man in the suit commentary is shocking, coming from someone who watched classic Doctor Who. It's not really. Yeah, it is, but it wasn't really my point, and I still stand by it.
Now look,
the Cybermen are not men in suits. Full stop. They're horrible.
You know, you're never going to be able to live that down, Al.
No,
I'm never going to live it down, but I stand by it.
Oh look.
Craig, thanks, Craig.
Craig says Avatar: Fire and Ash is out in December, isn't it? Yeah, December 19th, actually. And I think we all know
that date, Jeff. What's so special about that day?
I told my wife the other day, actually, I'm not available that day.
Are you going to see it in 4DX with Splasher-Vision?
No, I will go watch it as Cameron, as God intends, on IMAX 3D. And Paul did say he might even come over, because apparently his TV is better than on IMAX.
No, I never said my TV. I said my system. My system is better than IMAX.
Never cussing.
Mate, right, Jeff, just you hold on, sir. Just you hold on 1 second, right? No, wait until you come and see us in June, right? Because then you'll realise what your IMAX is missing. And what it's missing, every IMAX I've been to, is definition in sound. All they do, they crank up the volume everything distorts, and you can't, when you compare that to a system that you can actually hear definition in at low volumes or high volumes, it's a world of difference. And that's what IMAX doesn't seem to do, at least in my experience. Maybe yours is better, but
Well,
Most enjoyable film I've
sticky
ever seen at
carpets.
IMAX was Top Gun.
Oh yeah, amazing, amazing. Yeah,
I went on
There's
my
a
birthday.
reason.
I sat in the BFI at Waterloo and I watched
Yeah.
that film, and it was absolutely freaking brilliant. And
Hang on.
watch that film.
Halt.
It's brilliant.
Halt. Craig,
what's he
what
got?
were you not a fan of? If you're saying Way of Water, I'm gonna kick you out
The
of
last
this
one.
chat.
Was that another Avatar reference? Jeff, you're getting very precious. Hold on a second, because we've been discussing various movies, and Jeff's been getting a few digs in. Now there's starting to be a little bit of a swing towards or against Jeff, and there's some passion coming through. There's a bit of emotion here, I think.
Get a kickback coming from the.
Oh,
I'm just
Superman
gonna move
versus Super Dalek.
Did you guys watch Sinners? Says DW Fan 91. No, not yet. I've heard it's really good. It looked great on the trailer, so I would very much like to see that. But it gets harder to get to the cinema when you get older and you've got kids. And,
it's difficult.
I can't get out all the time.
Oh, do you know?
Take
I know
kids
it's
to
not
watch 'em.
Avatar, but again, I put on The Abyss the other
Bradley.
day, and
Oh, so good. Looks amazing on 4K.
What a
cracker.
brilliant film! That.
Yeah, we can all agree on The Abyss. I think had been an absolute amazing
I think
film.
that people are discovering The Abyss anew because it's basically been missing for 20 years. It wasn't on DVD, wasn't on Blu-ray. You couldn't stream it. It occasionally popped up on TV, but now it's out on Blu and on 4K. It's such a good film.
Man of
Boo
Steel was
Radley
2013,
says-
by the way. So that's
I suppose it's 12 years ago. It just
ago.
feels too
And it's-
recent
and
in memory.
The problem with Man of Steel is it's just really depressing. Like Superman's always been about fun. So I don't mind Man of Steel. I never enjoyed it the first time. It's got a decent first half, and then it just goes really, really dark. I think I only like it in context of, without letting myself in for a world of pain, all the Zack Snyder shit and stuff. So anyway, moving on.
Well, one of the issues for me on Superman, sorry, not moving on, but one of the issues for me is I was watching on the BBC the sort of Superman and Lois TV series, and I was like, that's
weird.
But it was enjoyable, and frankly,
Yeah, I do agree.
The effects were as good as anything you would see at the movie.
Yeah, I quite like that. Superman as a family man. I don't think that's the thing we've really seen before in the Superman world. But again, see, that's the thing. It's a different take, and it's and I like the kids in that. I think are really good. You know what I mean? They've got a lot of anxieties, a lot of relationship struggles. They're trying to figure out who they are, on a personal level, and obviously with Superman's kids in terms of their kind of superpowers and stuff like that. In a way that doesn't feel, to me anyway, really forced, or just kind of laid on for the sake of it. It feels, it feels like the writers have really thought about it, and the actors have kind of thought about it, and it's all pulling together quite nicely. Doesn't feel hammed.
No.
Oh my God, there's people
right,
who've
dude.
never seen Avatar. Sam, they film it where you live. Well, I have to move on.
I've seen it, and it was
Yeah, you
wiped
didn't
from
like
my
it.
memory because I fell asleep.
So Buns Rat's asking an interesting question. If you could do, and this is for all of us, I think, if you could do figures from a movie, which one would it be?
Oh, let me
we're
put
not
that
going to
one up.
allow
That's
Jeff
this
to
one here.
answer because we know
what you would
he's
say.
I've got them. Can you
He's
see
already
'em?
got them. He
They're
doesn't
behind
need
me.
any more figures. Come on in now. What would yours be?
Just there.
almost certainly Blade Runner.
Ah,
Almost certainly Blade Runner.
yes. Yeah.
Followed by, I don't know, most of the sort of popular cultural ones have been done, but Blade Runner, I would say, is one
Yeah,
of those ones.
that would be a
that never-
good one.
I still have a hankering to do some Jerry Anderson stuff. Like
I was
would
just
love
going to
do,
say,
like
Space
UFO
1999,
or
Joe 90, something like that.
I wasn't big on Joe 90, but
No?
UFO was really good. I love Space 1999. I'm watching that on ITVX at the moment.
Yeah, it's good fun.
Oh
yeah.
my god, that's good. Battlestar Galactica. I went back and started watching a bit of that as well.
The
That's
what, the 70s one
fabulous.
or the
Oh
newer-
no, the sort of the newer one.
the new one? Yeah, that's pretty dark.
It's
pretty
so
dark
good.
as well, isn't
They
it?
had no special effects budget, but what they do
Oh.
is they kind of do the Douglas Adams thing of kind of perambulate. Wow, perambulate. Wow, you know. So they were they were clever in the way that they did that show because they didn't kind of try and do stuff all the time that they knew they just couldn't afford. So.
Yeah, no, I
I
agree with that.
would just off the top of my head, I'd have an Alita figure. I've got the Hot Toys Alita,
Okay.
but they only made that. They didn't make any others. It'd be good to have like the China suit, the China body, and then the
Alita's
Berserker
good,
one that they
and
did.
the Ghost in the Machine. I know a lot of people cussed it, but the Scarlett Johansson Ghost in the Machine.
Yeah.
I really like that film.
Ghost in the Shell.
Ghost in the Shell.
Good.
sorry.
Yeah.
I liked that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Ghost in the Shell. I think I've got some of it up there somewhere, but yeah.
There's
No, it's all
let me
fun.
just hold on one second, guys. Lone Dalek says, "How about some action figures of Jeff, Paul, and Al with a little monitor and desk
Oh, let me
accessories?"
put that one on. There you go. That's the one.
I think that would be a dreadful idea.
Nobody needs that.
Do you know
Nobody
one of the
needs
weird
that.
things that happened
I
to
could have
me was
interchangeable hats. That would be a thing.
at Design Works as a gift to me. I can't remember what it was for, but as a gift to me, they basically did me as an action figure, and they took the Ninth Doctor action figure and they stuck my head on it. I've never been more freaking horrified. I put it in a cupboard, and I don't know where it went, but I think I binned it, and it's a terrible thing to say, but I just absolutely was like, no, this is horrible. I don't ever want to see this ever
They wouldn't.
again.
No.
Even at work, where we did an HM Forces range of 12-inch figures, and everybody in our department, my boss and various people, were turned into action figures, and I was like, fuck no, I'm not. Please, no, just don't. I'm nothing to do with it. Nothing.
This is one for me actually. I'm going to read this because this is what I was kind of thinking when you asked the question, Jeff. From Tom, we've got Al. You've said previously if CO had the license, we would have done Blake 7. What would be in your dream wave of figures for that first wave?
Well, here's a story, gentlemen and ladies.
Oh, hold on, wait. Sorry, 1 second. Wait. Go.
So I would say hold that thought because there's discussions afoot, but it might never happen. But there was some discussions about whether we could ever kind of do that. What would my first wave of figures be? Avon and Orak would be the first ones.
Yeah.
Probably. I think the issue with Blake 7 is it's now almost getting. So I kind of think there's a hot point where things are really kind of in the zeitgeist. Then there's a point where they kind of go dead for a few years, and then they come back and they're kind of nostalgically really hot. I kind of feel
It's kind of a way.
we're in that weird bit where it's out of most people's memory.
I think there was a boom when the collection box sets came out a little while ago,
It was the fastest selling box set on Amazon. There was a whole load of stuff. I would say on that one, never say never. I would love to do it. I in my head, you know, you've got the gun accessory, you've got the teleport bracelets would be separate, and Borak would be there, and we'd have. I've said before. The Big Finish audios.
They are really
Amazing
good.
stories compared with even the stuff that was televised. I cannot stress enough how good the Big Finish Blake 7.
I do agree. I don't think it's I don't think it's better than the TV stories. I think the best of the Big Finish Blake 7 continue along in that vein and push them out. Maybe one or two stories push out a little bit further. There was a brilliant one. There's two that I really remember. One was by Andrew Smith. And it was about a bunch of Federation guys that were out on training manoeuvres. And I think Andrew Smith, once he'd kind of done his Doctor Who stuff, he was a writer for a while, and then he became a police guy for a little while. So he went through all the college and everything else. And it seemed that he was digging into some of that police training, and it was brilliant. It just, you could tell there was an authenticity about that, as they're dealing with, suddenly they got this Federation unit surrounded by a whole bunch of terrorists, and sort of shit going
Seven's dark, man. I mean,
It is.
some of it is dark. Some of the stuff you wouldn't even be able to do nowadays, because if you look at Blake, basically what happened with Blake was they, when they found out he was a rebel, they basically accused him of child abuse. So the whole
they fabricated the whole story about him,
sort
didn't
of
they?
incarceration is this falsified, and again, you've got to counterpoint that with what's going on in the world and other countries at the moment. But that kind of authoritarian regime, I've always said you're only over one election from the difference between a democracy and
mate, we're
dictator.
literally hanging on the edge of dystopia
here we
right
go.
now.
it's like so Blake 7 I think was always a bit more sort of on the nose, but I'd love to do Blake 7, Zen and Aurak.
Information. I can't do that.
Why have we had these constant interruptions?
That's very good. That was very good. We should have to get you to do a little Aurak thing that we can play.
Oh, Alistair Locke on Blake on the Big Finish Blake 7 is just absolutely brilliant.
By Craig, by the way. Sorry, Craig's
got to go. Thanks, Craig. A couple of questions quickly. Lewis says, I know I keep on, but I'd love to see a Sasha Master, and will it have the same love and attention as the Joe and Shooty figures? Quick, what do you think, Al?
So again, all I can say is there's nothing on the plans. I've seen some people suggest stuff that was actually very close to what I was thinking about, which is taking the 11th Doctor and basically using his outfit but changing the lower legs. And, relatively easy to do ish, but I would, it's the trouble is there's so much stuff in Doctor Who we haven't done. Literally we haven't done. And everybody has their wish list of stuff. Answer, yes, I would love to do it. It's not on any cards at the moment, but I think so. Again, I'm 13th Doctor era, and I didn't like that interpretation of the Master. I think the Master is much better when he or she is clever and brilliant, not a freaking psychopath.
But he is a psychopath.
He's just mental.
But that's the point.
But in the same way as the John Sim Master, I don't really like the John Sim Master either, because he's just a Fruit Loop, and it's my opinion, and that's all it is. I think Missy, Ainley, and Delgado are much better interpretations
because
they're
calmer,
just
perhaps
clever. That's it.
I think you're right, though, Al. There is so much that you could do from the 60 years plus that you just can't
lost
do it
in
all.
it all, couldn't you?
Yeah. DW Fan 91 said maybe you kind of missed the beginning of the stream. Are you enjoying Series 15 more than Series 14? Yes. And how would you say it compares to Series 11 to 13 and specials? I don't need to answer that.
Just say it's not in the same league. Should we go that?
13's team was specials, wasn't it? Really? Yeah. Somewhere or another. Don't shake your head like that. You know what I'm talking about.
There was a couple in the final. Wasn't there? Power of the Doctor, the Sea Devils, and the Daleks one.
Eve of the Daleks.
Yeah, Eve of the Daleks. That was it. I knew that.
Eve of the Daleks, I think, gets a bit unfairly treated.
I love that story. Eve of the Daleks
is great.
Yeah. Go on.
No. It's up there in the same way that Heaven Sent is, with the Doctor turning up in the replicator and dying each time, and it's kind of that same thing of, you don't want the Doctor to die, but it's made very explicit in both those episodes that the Doctor is dying each time. It's just by dint of the fact that it's basically a recursive time loop and it's getting shorter and shorter and shorter that they're coming back and back and back. But I think it's clever, and I think it as a kind of as a story on its own, I really like it, and I also really love those Gatling gun.
They're brilliant, aren't they?
Germany has,
Yeah.
the executioner Daleks are just brilliant. They look
fantastic.
different, and they are,
Yeah.
you know, there's that beautiful chocolate brown color that they chose for the with the sort of, you know, that Gatling gun. I thought that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, I think yeah, we did do a review on Eve of the Darks with Joe Ford from Hans with the
Yeah,
Dark
we
Night podcast,
did a
didn't we?
commentary.
Because
Yeah,
he was a big fan of Eve of the Daleks.
bearing in mind that the episode was written in like 2 days because they were suddenly the planned episode was too expensive, fell through, and Chris
I didn't know
wrote that.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever was planned, the Matt
It ended up
said,
as the first part of Power of the Doctor, I think.
Yes.
Didn't they? That was kind of the only thing that was left from that story as such.
Yeah, and the Eve of the Daleks was a last minute
I think that's why it came under flack. It was almost like some people said, "Oh, well, it's kind of they ran out of budget and it was the cheap one. Let's shoot it in the warehouse thing." And you could.
Well, it's not far wrong, yeah.
Or you can throw the other thing, which is it's actually quite clever. You know,
Yes, it's brilliant for you know, born of necessity. You know, we got an episode requirement. There's no money. So do this, and still in COVID time, you know. I mean, people sometimes moan that Flux doesn't fully make sense, which I don't agree with. But I think that, you know, that was supposed to be, you know, 8 episodes, and it got condensed down to 6. But
I still maintain to this day, Flux, the show, Doctor Who, the show, regardless of the stories, the show has never looked better than that series. The special effects were
incredible, really.
Next level. You know, it was absolutely astounding.
Totally agree.
Oh, it's just gone. Hang on. Gareth says, "Who looks at beans and thinks there needs to be beef?"
Got
Top dialogue from Eve of the.
It's great, from Ashland Day, wasn't it? Yeah. Who looks at
Yeah,
beans
one of
and
my.
thinks beef? I don't know. Was it Mandible who said that actually?
Is it one of my favourite lines is when
anyway,
13 does that and she goes, "Look, I'm not even wearing a watch." Oh, look, there's a comment here. Dark Hall, Doctor Pooh in the TARDIS. Well, that's great. Thanks for that. So lovely, brilliant.
Which one are they talking about there?
I'm assuming they are referring to Jodie's Doctor because it seems like the sort of thing.
Well, you know, like I say, it's horses for courses, and that is the thing about Doctor Who. You know, I'm not particularly fond of the first or second Doctor. Third Doctor I love. Fourth Doctor, Seventh.
Everyone's
Doctor,
got their moment, haven't they?
Yeah.
You know, it is for everyone, and it's always of its time, and it always has something to say. So, you know, you can't. I don't think you can cuss it out of hand like that and say it's this. For you, it might be, and for me, I have issues with certain incarnations of the Doctor. But you know, it's a 60-year-old TV program, and it's
exactly
50 years old for a reason.
Yeah,
you know,
and I think it's just about being respectful and you know, decent about it.
Not being a total prick about the whole thing.
My thing is not your thing, and it never.
My thing is your thing.
Yeah.
Exactly
And
right.
there's
This is
no
why we
need
have
to
such
be,
great discussions.
Yeah, there's no need to be donkey about it. Thank you, Sam. That's very kind.
In fairness, if that's their opinion, then that's their opinion. I can tell it kind of niggled you guys. For me, it's like, well,
I'm over it already.
There's aspects to everything.
So here's a question from Dr. 909 then. So how would you feel about a 10th Planet set with Polly, repainted 3 Doctors Joe, Ben repainted Mickey, and a re-release of a Mondasian Cyberman?
Right, everything other than the Mondasian Cyberman you can keep. Because it's just like, no, what's literally from a commercial point of view, what's interesting is there is a very definitive fall off until you hit the color series. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's something we've always known ever since we started doing classic Doctors. You know, with the exception of the Troughton, you know, with the Yetis and the TARDIS and the fur coat and stuff like that. So when you don't anybody think we're getting a Yeti, by the way, because we well, now they think we do. But there is actually a drop off in terms of, and there always has been in terms of sales for those early ones. So they are a harder, 100%. They're a harder gig to get away versus anything that's in the color era. So what I would say is the Mondasian Cybermen is one of my favorites. I've always loved the Cybermen when it's very clear that they are augmented humans and not robots.
So, like, basically, if you can see they're a man in a suit,
Iron Man suit or armor,
and
there is nothing there, it is infinitely less terrifying than somebody with a cloth over their face that goes and a voice comes out. It's like it's
what do they do?
Creepy word, isn't it?
There's certain things that humans, I think, we all look for facial expressions, and we all look for
there's none there.
little tells and stuff, and that's what makes us human. Because
the
minute you take that away, and it becomes horrifying, because we're like, that's not right.
Yeah, it's like a sort of the golem sort of thing, isn't it? The mannequin that's come to life. Human but not quite human. So that's sort of scary. Interesting.
Bundesrat, is that how you say it?
Bundesrat.
I lost interest in 13, but love the figure of her dressed as an amalgamation.
That was a good one.
Of
Yeah, I got that somewhere.
Just up there. Yep.
So you got yours there.
Sorry. Dark.
we need to apologise to Dark. There you go.
Yes, Dark. Where's it gone? Didn't mean to upset anyone. I meant the current series. Night Talk to my favourite classic.
I don't think
we forgive you.
Yeah, I saw your comment and I just sort of wrongly.
So you jumped to conclusions, Jeff.
I did, and but I would like to say. Everyone who's been here is great, and
it's been lovely. We
genuinely, when we started the podcast, Paul and I were like, because we started doing our MCU one, and then we finished all of that, and then we said, this has been fun. Shall we carry on? What should we do? Let's do who?
What else do we like, Jeff? That's what we kind of thought.
Yeah,
didn't we?
and is anyone going to listen? Who knows? But let's just do it, and it's grown. Beyond anything we could have imagined. And
mate, we've been doing weekly podcasts for nearly 3 years now. I think
it's more than that. I think
it might be
we've made some great friends, met some great people
in that time. Look at that.
You guys always put a very positive spin on stuff. I think that is one of the highlights of you guys, that you always come at stuff with an open mind.
We do try,
which I think is important.
That's one of our main things, and I just wanted to say, everyone who listens and engages, you guys are amazing. It really is a positive, cheerful audience, and
generally
taking
is.
the piss.
No, I mean it in an affectionate way. Come on, get real.
I was going to say, he's got a heart of stone.
It's got personal now. I would just have him.
But you guys are brilliant. So this has been great fun. I've really enjoyed this. So I think you guys have to depart now, don't you? But Classic Cool's going to be on the new channel.
Got to get my beauty sleep. I think it's not working.
I hope we covered some of the stuff that people. I've really enjoyed it as well. It's quite different doing stuff like this live.
I'd be quite keen to do this, a bit more regularly, and it's nice. Hopefully, people tuning in have enjoyed our chat about other stuff as well, because we do ramble sometimes, and I like to think that our other things and our other interests are relevant to.
What would be fascinating, I think, is to maybe do a mass watch along. Maybe we do one episode.
That
where
could
we
be
all
fun, actually.
Watch along, and do what we do anyway, but we do it with everyone. Because I've caught me by surprise, and I don't know who activated it, but the sort of comments popping up on the screen is actually quite interesting, and that's quite an interesting sort of way.
Yeah, this is brilliant. Bundesrat says, a shout out to Al for his continued engagement with the podcast and Gallifrey Base. Not many get that engagement with their hobby. And I think that's true, Al. I don't see anyone else doing anything like that, and you are very, very good to to people?
Well, I like to chat about new product. It's difficult because, you know, everybody has a wish list of stuff that they want, and like somebody said, oh, it's terrible. You know, I saw the comment coming back saying, oh, about the 60 stuff. It's terrible to, but they want. I'm not saying never say never. By the way, it's just that's just me giving you some sort of feedback. But I think in terms of product, you know, it kind of, in an ideal world, we'd be running a Black series and there'd be hundreds of stuff. The reality is Doctor Who currently isn't like that, so we have to kind of pick our shots. We don't always get it right, by the way, and I'm very well aware of that. So, you know,
That's what it's all about, though, isn't it?
there is, you know, we even had discussions today about some of the stuff that we could potentially do for next year that I think you guys will be just astounded by if it happens, because it's taken the sort of direct to consumer route and maybe doing something, you know, even more exciting than we're doing at the moment, potentially not 100%. So it's, you know, it's just the laws of budgets, and, you know, if you imagine all the characters we could do versus my budget to make 5 figures or 5 sets in a year.
If it was unlimited, yeah.
You know, if you think of a racing horse, the racing horse is a series and all these new adventures, and we're still dealing with all the stuff from 60 years up to now, so we never kind of catch up, but we can kind of only hope. So I would say there's always hope.
There's always hope. Yeah, indeed it is.
Which is, I think, a Doctor quote, but I'm trying
I think it is, yeah.
Oh, it's third Doctor. There's always hope, Sarah Jane.
There's always hope, Joe. Is it Joe, Sarah Jane? There's always
Sarah
hope,
Jane, just before he
Sarah
regenerates, I
Jane.
think he says.
Ah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Something similar.
Yeah.
Before Cho-Ji turns up and he says, I'll just give it a little push.
Just give it a little nudge. Just going to give it a little nudge,
right.
darling. There you go.
Little nudge. As it turned out, it didn't need that.
Didn't need it
because
after
was
all.
immortal in a way.
There you go. Exactly that. Right. This has been a lot of fun, I think.
Yes, thank you everyone, and do keep in touch on our socials and things. And Al, Paul, I'm up for this again if you are, and hopefully listeners and viewers would enjoy it as well.
Definitely, I'd love to do a watch along, and I'd love to know what the guys want to talk about, not just action figures, maybe for next time. You know,
Yeah.
I quite like the fact we discussed stuff out with Doctor Who and other stuff that we all like.
Yeah, it's you know, we are primarily
I didn't even get a Ghostbusters mention in, which I'm quite I have now, but you know,
You've done it now. You've managed it now. We've had Avatar. We've had a Star Wars rant. We've had. We even managed to squeeze in the IMAX argument somewhere along the line. That's going to just run on and on
the
and on.
IMAX argument is a very difficult one because I know exactly where you're coming from, but I'm conflicted on it because I'm as good as my home system is. I know.
Have you got the right home system? I don't know.
It's a massive. It's a massive.
It doesn't
screen.
matter how big it is. It's not just a screen, Jeff. It's the
It's
audio.
filmed.
Well, we've come full
It's
circle. It's
filmed
not the
for that
size, it's how you
screen.
use it, apparently.
Right. Anyway, this is going to run on and on. Listeners, thank you to everyone who's joined us on
Thanks,
our
everyone.
very first
Thank you, everyone.
live stream. This is
been
just
fun.
so exciting. It's been emotional. We will join you on the standard podcast very shortly, no doubt. I think we've got our usual kind of season 2 kind of watch along
Yes,
thing going on.
we're going to be a bit late with the well, aren't we? Because we're busy over the next few days, but that will be coming soon. And then we'll get back on track with that, and then we'll have Al on
God's
again
sake, leave
soon.
me out of the next one. This has been just tragic. You two do something on your own for once.
Hey, behave yourself. We love having you on, mate, and it's all good.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure they do, but I'm happy.
No, they do.
Bye
Thanks,
for now,
everyone.
people.
See you
See you
soon.
next time.
Bye.
Bye.
See you next time. Bye.